You didn't find this video by accident. There's a book so ancient, so powerful, it's been hidden for millennia. Governments tried to destroy it, priests sealed it away, and wizards swore to protect it with their very lives. But now it's here, and if it's crossed your path, it's because you've been called. This book isn't just a text, it's a vibrational code, and when it recognizes you, it starts to work. Because the teachings you're about to receive weren't made for the curious. They were made to awaken those who are ready. And if you felt something different just now, then get ready. Because from this moment on, the book starts to open inside you. The world we see isn't made of things, but of processes. Everything is movement. Everything is relationship. And it's in this moment that a phrase echoes, crossing centuries as if it were written for right now. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. It's not a metaphor. It's not pretty poetry to decorate the text. This is a key, a password, a ritual sentence that served to test who was truly ready to go beyond the surface. Because the knowledge we're talking about was never meant to feed the curiosity of someone who just wants to know. It was forged to shape the spirit of those ready to be transformed. That phrase, stamped right at the beginning of the Kybalion, is not decorative. It's a vibrational barrier, a sacred whisper that has already turned away thousands. Because true wisdom does not give itself to rushed eyes. It hides from the impatient, and it reveals itself only to those who have the courage to listen with the heart, to move past mental restlessness and stay present even when they don't understand everything right away. Ears of understanding are not ears that have heard a lot. They are ears that listen deeply, that don't react in haste, that don't judge, don't interrupt, don't try to fit what's new into what is already known. Ears of understanding are open channels to the invisible. That's why, since the earliest records, this knowledge was sealed with layers. Not just with written codes, but with internal challenges that blocked the path of those who hadn't yet crossed the line of superficiality. It wasn't the texts that were locked. It was the souls who didn't yet know how to open them. And even so, some managed to, not by luck, but by presence, by surrender, by compatible vibration. Think of figures like Apollonius of Tyana, Paracelsus, Cornelius Agrippa, Giordano Bruno. Names that crossed the centuries like beacons in the darkness of dogma and ignorance. They weren't just scholars. They were initiates, men who touched this knowledge with reverence, courage, and surrender. And all of them had their lives marked by something in common. They were transformed to the bone by this knowledge, not because they simply read it, but because they let it move through them completely. And in many cases, they paid the price. Because when you start to live this wisdom, you automatically become a threat to the system that feeds on unconsciousness. But true initiation doesn't come from external recognition. It begins in silence. In the moment you feel you're in front of something greater, that something vibrates differently inside, that the information coming to you no longer behaves like ordinary information. It pulses, it stirs, it touches places that had been asleep. And even if your mind tries to understand, classify, rationalize, something deeper is happening. And this is the first sign that the lips of wisdom are starting to open. It's no coincidence that Hermeticism has always been called that. Hermetic, closed, reserved. Not because they wanted to exclude, but because they knew not everyone was ready. True wisdom is like a very potent substance. If taken in by an unprepared body, it can harm instead of heal. It can expand too much a field that doesn't yet have the structure to hold that expansion. It can open portals that the common mind cannot comprehend and end up causing imbalances instead of liberation. That's why it was protected. Hidden, not out of selfishness, but for protection. so that when the right time came, it could find those truly ready to receive it. First code. The universe is not just what you see. The universe is not just what you see. These words may seem simple at first glance, but they carry a silent impact that disarms any old certainty. Because what the eyes capture is only a fraction of what's really going on. The visible, tangible, concrete reality is like the tip of an iceberg. What holds all of it up, the invisible, the untouchable, the incalculable, is where the real game is played. The first code Thoth left hidden in the folds of time, later translated as the principle of mentalism, reveals something shocking. Everything is mind. Everything is consciousness. Everything, absolutely everything that exists, was first born in an invisible field of thought, intention, or inner image before it manifested in the form we know. And if that sounds too mystical, it's because everyday language isn't enough to describe what can only be perceived with your entire field. The chair you're sitting on, the phone in your hand, the building you live in, the sound of the words you're hearing now, all of it already existed as an idea before it became matter. And more, every situation in your life, every cycle that repeats, every encounter, every struggle, every blessing, all of it was already being formed inside you long before it showed up on the outside. The mind isn't just where you think. The mind is where the universe begins. When you truly understand this, not with logic but with vibration, everything changes. Because you realize that reality isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. The mind isn't just the source of your thoughts. It's the mold that holds everything you experience. How many times have you seen someone change their life without having all the external resources? An ordinary person, no big opportunities, no connections, no money, no support, and yet they achieved something extraordinary. And at the same time, how many people, even surrounded by structure, intelligence, and privilege, spiral into destructive patterns, unable to move forward? What sets them apart isn't just what they do, it's what they hold inside, the mental vibration they carry, the kind of reality they believe is possible for them, and even more, the kind of reality they already live inside, even when nothing outside seems to have changed. That's why the first code is the most dangerous, because it gives the power back. It removes the blame from the world, the circumstances, the past, the other, and points straight inward. But not as an accusation, as a reminder. Because deep down, you already knew this. You've already had moments where something showed up before you even understood how. You've noticed situations shift after a firm thought, a silent decision, a moment of inner clarity. That wasn't coincidence. That was mentalism in action. The mind is where the seed of reality is planted. But this seed isn't just made of random ideas. It's watered by the emotion that comes with the thought. And this combination, thought plus feeling, is what gives vibrational strength to what you emit. You can think of something, but if the emotion behind it is weak, confused, or negative, the emission gets weaker. On the other hand, when you feel what you think as a living truth, you start shaping the field around you. You become an active generator of reality. We're not talking about cheap, positive thinking. It's not about smiling while everything falls apart, or pretending joy where there's pain. It's about recognizing that everything that vibrates in the mind echoes into the field. And this field isn't just yours. It's the shared field. It's the vibrational fabric that connects everything to everything. You're part of a living network, a web of frequencies that responds precisely to the vibration you emit. That's why the question that starts to arise is no longer, why is this happening to me? But what inside me is sustaining this reality? That question is a portal. It doesn't accuse you, it awakens you. Because it shows that you're not just part of the story. You're the author who's still learning to write with awareness. Scientific studies are starting to touch this mystery. Research on neuroplasticity, biofeedback, heart coherence, the electromagnetic field of the brain and heart reveal that the human body emits signals, vibrations, informational fields that affect the surrounding environment. But Thoth said this millennia ago without needing any device, because he accessed that knowledge straight from the origin, from the source, from the primordial mind where everything is born. And now that same code is opening within you. Second code. What is within is like what is without. And this is where the second code starts to reveal itself, almost like a mirror that doesn't just reflect, but responds. What is within is like what is without. What is above is like what is below. This ancient phrase, repeated in temples, carved into tablets, whispered in secret ceremonies, carries a logic that goes beyond ordinary reason, because it's not describing an idea, it's describing a structure, an invisible mechanism that makes everything, absolutely everything, connected through vibration, through resonance, through living correspondence. What happens inside you is not isolated. The emotions you feel, the thoughts you feed, the beliefs you hold, the feelings you don't express, all of that shapes the world around you like an invisible reflection. And it's not a metaphor, it's a mechanism. It's a law operating in silence. And the more you ignore it, the more it runs on autopilot, repeating patterns, spinning cycles, mirroring conflicts you don't understand where they come from. Maybe you've already noticed this. The repetition of certain types of relationships. The same frustrations showing up with different faces. Financial problems returning even when you believe everything is about to change. Conflicts at home always appearing the same way, even if the setting is different. None of this is random. None of this is external in the absolute sense. All of it is correspondence. It's the universe projecting outward what pulses within, so you can see clearly what still needs to be understood. And this isn't punishment, it's opportunity. Because when you start observing life's mirrors with presence, everything transforms. You stop fighting the symptom and start touching the root. Instead of trying to force change in the outer world, you shift your inner field. And like magic, the external reorganizes. People change. Situations dissolve. Resistance disappears. Because the source has been touched. That's why in ancient spiritual traditions, both in Egypt and in Greek and Indian initiatic schools, inner purification was the first step before any ritual, study, or sacred practice. Because they knew if the inner altar was out of order, the outer temple would reflect that disorder. The architecture of ancient temples, like Luxor, Karnak, or even the layout of the Cretan labyrinths, weren't just buildings. They were living maps of the human soul. Every corridor, every measurement, every pillar represented an aspect of the self. The intention was clear: align the microcosm with the macrocosm. Because once aligned, the flow of the divine becomes natural. And that didn't stay in the past. Even today, you can access that correspondence, and it starts with something simple: observing. Observe your space. Observe your relationships. Observe your routine, your body, your sleep, your mood, your reactions. Each of these aspects carries signs. Every part of your life is telling you what vibrates inside. A messy home might be pointing to a saturated mind. Conflicted relationships might be revealing wounds left unhealed. A tired, tense, inflamed body might be expressing emotions you've swallowed for years. Everything is connected. Nothing is random. Nothing is disconnected from you. And when you accept this code, even without fully understanding it, a new sensitivity begins to emerge. You start to see the invisible in the subtext of everyday life. You start to notice how that harsh comment you got at work only hurts so much because it hit something you still haven't healed. How that feeling of abandonment, which came up again in yet another relationship, is actually an echo of something that was already vibrating inside before the other person even arrived. And then you understand. The other didn't cause it. the other just revealed it. This awareness is liberating, because you realize you can clean the mirror, adjust the original image, shift the internal vibration so the external reflection changes. And this is where the power of practice comes in. It's not enough to just know, you have to act. And to act, in this case, is to look inward with courage and honesty, not to judge yourself, but to notice where the harmony was broken, where the flow got stuck, where you're still trying to change the world without realizing the world is just showing you something of yours. A practical and powerful example. When you wake up, before checking your phone, before connecting to the outside world, pause, breathe. Ask, what do I need to harmonize in myself today so the day reflects peace? This question, asked with honesty, starts to move deep energies. It doesn't require a verbal answer. It requires listening. And when you start your day like this, with focus on what vibrates inside, the day responds. Because the universe is a living, mirrored, exact field. It responds faithfully to your dominant vibration. And this applies to everything. Your work environment, your conversations, your diet, your spirituality, your creativity, your intuition. Everything responds. Everything reflects. Everything returns what you're putting out, even if you don't yet know you're putting it out. And if everything is a mirror, then everything is in motion. Because the next code is going to make you face what never stops, even when it seems still. Third code, nothing is still, even when you think it is. And if everything is a mirror, then everything is in motion, because the next code is going to make you face what never stops, even when it seems still. This is the moment when you start to realize that even in times when it feels like nothing is happening, everything is still vibrating. Silence vibrates. Pause vibrates. Emptiness vibrates too. This is the third code, and it dissolves one of the most persistent illusions of the human mind, the idea that something is still, frozen, isolated from the flow of existence. Nothing is still, not even for a second. Everything is vibrating. Everything is oscillating at some level, even when the eyes can't see and the ears can't hear. Ancient civilizations already knew this before science could prove it. Everything vibrates, from the most solid granite to the subtlest flame. Matter at its core is a cluster of energy in constant motion. The oldest stone vibrates, the mountain vibrates, the air vibrates, your body vibrates, your soul vibrates, and above all, your intention vibrates. And here's the key. The quality of your vibration is what determines the kind of reality you tune into. Just like a radio can only pick up the station whose signal is on the same frequency, you can only access experiences that vibrate in the same field that you're emitting. It doesn't matter how badly you want something if your vibration isn't aligned with it. Reality doesn't respond to surface-level desire. It responds to the real vibrational field you sustain. So, observe. How are you vibrating right now? What's the invisible tone of your presence in the world? Have you noticed how some people, even without saying a word, change the energy of a room just by being there? Have you ever walked into a place where everything felt heavy, dense, even in silence? And on the other hand, have you been around someone whose presence felt light, bright, like time itself softened around them? That's vibration. And vibration isn't an opinion. It's a state. And that state is built, consciously or unconsciously, from everything you feed: your thoughts, your emotions, your breathing, your rhythm, your focus. All of it contributes to generating the frequency you emit. And the universe, this great sensitive intelligence, responds with precision. Fourth code, the power of opposites and why you're still stuck between them. But be careful. Vibrations aren't just positive or negative, because the next code shows that everything, absolutely everything, carries two poles that you need to learn to master. And this is exactly where the fourth code starts to pulse. Polarity isn't some distant philosophical concept. It's the invisible structure that organizes the entire experience. Everything has two sides. Everything carries a double within itself. Light and shadow, up and down, bright and dark, love and hate, excitement and apathy. But what few people realize is that these opposites aren't separated by a gap. They're connected by the same vibrational line. Cold isn't the absolute opposite of heat. It's heat at a lower intensity. Anger isn't the opposite of love. It's love that's distorted, wounded, compressed by unexpressed layers. This is the code of conscious transition. Polarity shows that even though extremes may seem like opposites, they belong to the same essence. They are variations of the same principle, manifesting at different intensities. And when you truly get this, you realize you're not stuck in either one. You can move. You can transition. You can transform. This code reveals that the world isn't made of opposites at war, but of complementary forces in constant oscillation. And it's in that oscillation where you often lose yourself. Because instead of understanding that you can navigate between poles, you identify with one of them as if it's who you are. You cling to sadness as if it's part of your identity. You surrender to anger as if it's inevitable. You drown in apathy as if there's no way out. But there is. There always was. It's just that no one showed you that extremes are only temporary points, not fixed destinations. Anger, for example, can be one of the most destructive forces when fed unconsciously. But when acknowledged and directed, it becomes drive, clarity, determined action. It breaks stagnation. It moves. It transforms. Sadness, when lived without escape, becomes deep introspection. It takes you to internal places that no surface-level joy could ever reach. It heals. It reveals. It silently nourishes the soul. Nothing needs to be rejected. The secret lies in learning to move, in recognizing the pole you're in and sliding, little by little, toward a more harmonious state. And that transition doesn't happen through denial. It happens through presence. It happens when you look at the shadow without running from it, when you embrace fear without trying to suffocate it, when you breathe inside the pain until it dissolves and reveals what was hidden behind it. The principle of polarity doesn't want you to choose one side or the other. It wants you to understand that it's possible to circulate, to transform, to guide energy between extremes with awareness and maturity. Fifth code, the rhythm that moves your life. But knowing this isn't enough. You need to understand the hidden rhythm behind everything, because it's what pulls you from one side to the other. The fifth code pulses like an invisible clock at the core of existence. It makes no noise, turns on no lights, sends no alerts. But it controls everything, and most people don't even realize they're being guided by it. This code is rhythm, and everything, absolutely everything, is subject to it. Day moves toward night. The tide rises and then retreats. The heart beats, rests, beats again. Nature's cycles, the moon phases, human moods, creative flow, life energy. Everything dances to this beat that no one sees, but that moves it all. And here's the secret few recognize. Rhythm isn't just an external force. It also lives inside you. There's an inner pendulum that takes you from one extreme to the other, even when you think you're standing still. That's why you feel waves of excitement that rise out of nowhere. And then the crash. A tiredness. A need to withdraw. Then another rise. And again. Retreat. And the mind, trained to live in a straight line, tries to resist. Tries to stay high all the time. Tries to force presence when the body asks for silence. tries to produce when the soul asks for pause. But the rhythm code is clear. Everything flows and reflows. Everything rises and falls. Everything moves forward and returns. Denying that movement is denying the intelligence of life itself. Suffering often comes from trying to hold on to the high, as if good moments could last forever, as if inspiration didn't need rest, as if high tide wasn't naturally meant to fall. The true wise one doesn't try to control rhythm. They learn to dance with it. They recognize the flow and surrender. And more than that, they prepare. Because they know the ups and downs aren't flaws in the universe, but phases of the same cycle. In the high moments, they sow with awareness. They ride the tailwind. They create, plant, expand. In the low moments, they retreat with wisdom, restore energy, observe, listen. And so, even in the quiet phases, they stay in tune with the whole. This principle also explains why certain cycles repeat, why it seems like, even after so much progress, something pulls you back to old feelings. Because rhythm follows the pendulum, and the pendulum always swings both ways. But once you become aware of this, you stop resisting and start positioning yourself. You begin using rhythm in your favor, stop being a victim of the swings, and become the navigator of movement. Imagine your current life is a fertile field where only the seeds you've planted grow, even if you planted them without knowing. That difficult conversation that repeats with different people. The feeling that you always end up back at the same point. The block that shows up every time you're about to achieve something big. None of it comes up by accident. All of it is the effect of a cause. And the more you ignore that, the more you feel trapped by repetition. But the code also reveals something powerful. You can change the causes. You can generate new seeds with new frequencies, with new gestures, new inner decisions. You can start today, now. Because the universe isn't tied to your past. It responds to what you vibrate with presence. What you choose consciously becomes the new seed of what you'll harvest. Want a real example? Imagine someone who repeats the thought, "I'm always rejected." That phrase, emotionally charged, becomes a vibrational cause, and that cause keeps producing effects. People pulling away, miscommunication, attraction of situations that validate that feeling. But if that person recognizes the belief, faces it with presence, and starts to replace it with a new vibration, "I am worthy of being seen and loved," they shift the frequency, and over time, they change the effects. Seventh code, the meeting of creative forces. And if everything is caused, then everything is also generated, because the final code reveals the secret of true creation. This code is the force behind everything that's born. It's not limited to physical life. It governs ideas, movements, encounters, projects, healing, and entire realities. And even though the name might confuse the modern mind, it's not about the body. It speaks of energy. The seventh code is the principle of gender, and it's not about biological male or female. It reveals that everything that exists is born from the union of two creative principles that live within all things. There's a force in you that acts, projects, penetrates, directs. This is the active, emitting, direct, creative energy, called masculine, not by gender, but by vibrational function. And there is also a force in you that receives, intuits, listens, gestates, shapes. This is the receptive, moldable, deep, generative energy, called feminine, not by identity, but by cosmic nature. And it's from the dance between these two energies that everything takes form. Most people live in imbalance between these poles. Some act too much, do too much, run, plan, force. They're so connected to doing that they disconnect from feeling. Others only dream, wait, intuit, wish, but don't manifest. They know what they want, but don't take the step. They feel the inspiration, but don't move into action. And that's where creation gets stuck. The universe responds to the balance between action and reception. The power of thought needs the surrender of silence. The drive of will needs the listening of intuition. Decision needs the space where something new can be gestated. If you want to create a new reality, you need to learn to use both forces with awareness. You need to know when to act with focus and clarity, and when to retreat with trust and listening. When to move forward, when to receive, when to send, when to absorb. And this isn't learned just in theory. It's in the body, in your routine, in your choices. Are you acting all the time? Maybe you're ignoring the wisdom of pause. Are you waiting too much? Maybe you're suffocating your active energy. Balancing your inner agenda is aligning your creative channel. It's becoming a tuned instrument for the forces that move the universe. True creation doesn't come from isolated effort or passive waiting. It comes from the fusion of these energies within you. When your intention, masculine, meets an open and fertile space in your field, feminine, reality bends and responds. An idea takes shape, a healing manifests, a new cycle begins. And it's no coincidence this is the final code. Because it's the meeting point of all the others. It's where mentalism finds direction, where correspondence echoes, where vibration pulses, where polarity dances, where rhythm balances, where cause generates. It is the cosmic womb of creation. And now that you've crossed through the 7 codes, something new begins to be born. And now that all 7 codes have been revealed, comes the final secret, the one only those who stayed until now will receive. Because by this point you're no longer listening with the same ears. Something in you has already been transformed. The field is already different. The book didn't just speak, it touched. And if you feel that, then you're ready to cross a door that never closes again. If you've made it this far, it's because something in you has already started to awaken. And this isn't the end of the journey. It's just the first step. Now write in the comments, "The book found me, and I'm ready to remember." This phrase will anchor this frequency in your field, and might even awaken someone who's reading. And before you go, don't close this portal just yet. A special video has been picked exactly for you to continue this journey. Click on the screen, and I'll see you there. The next code is waiting for you. If you felt this content truly touched you, and you want to help spread this wisdom to the world, there's a direct link in the pinned comment to support the channel. Or, if you prefer, click the Super Thanks button below. Besides contributing, you'll strengthen this spiritual mission. See you at the next portal.